My name is Clara Morgan, and last Thanksgiving I discovered my parents were planning to kill my grandfather. It started with a whisper. I was walking past my father's study when I heard my mother's voice, sharp, quiet, trembling with greed. "He's signing the new will on Thursday," she said. "Once he does, the estate is ours. We just need to make sure he doesn't live long enough to change it again." I froze. My heartbeat became the only sound I could hear. My father replied with that calm, calculated tone he always used in business meetings. "I've taken care of it. The medication switch will look natural. No one will suspect a thing." I wanted to scream to storm in, but I couldn't move. My mother laughed softly, a sound that suddenly felt unfamiliar, alien. "After all these years, Martin will finally get what we deserve." That's when I realized they weren't just talking, they meant it. I waited until the room fell silent, then slipped into the hallway and dialed my grandfather's number with shaking hands. The line clicked once, then his voice came through steady as always. "Clara," he said, "I've been expecting your call." My mouth went dry. You know, I do. And I need you to trust me. Don't tell them yet. Just come to dinner on Thursday. Let them believe they've already won. The way he said it sent a chill through me. Not fear, but something darker, heavier. My grandfather wasn't surprised. He was ready, and in that moment I realized the truth. The Morgans were not a family. We were a battlefield, and the war had just begun. The days leading up to Thanksgiving felt like living on a movie set where everyone knew their lines, except me. My parents moved through the house rehearsing smiles and small talk, pretending to be the perfect couple again. My mother laughing at his old jokes, my father resting a hand on her shoulder like they were high school sweethearts instead of conspirators. The Morgan estate in Riverside had always been beautiful, but that week it felt cold. The marble floors echoed every step, chandeliers casting light too harsh to be warm. My mother filled the dining hall with golden candles and imported flowers, calling it worthy of Harold Morgan's last Thanksgiving. The words made my stomach twist. At breakfast, my father asked if I'd join them for dinner Thursday night. "Your grandfather will appreciate it," he said, stirring his coffee. I nodded, pretending not to see the satisfaction in his eyes. He didn't know I'd heard. He didn't know I'd called Harold. That night I found his study door cracked open. On the desk a laptop glowed Morgan Estate Revision 2.0. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The new will named Martin and Linda Morgan as heirs. My name was gone. It wasn't the money, it was the message. "You're not one of us anymore." I closed the laptop, my reflection on the black screen, eyes harder, colder. Then my mother appeared in the doorway, wineglass in hand, looking for something dear. "Just air," I said. She smiled soft and poisonous. "You'll understand one day, Clara. The world belongs to those who take what they want." Her perfume lingered long after she left. In that house, even love had a price tag. The next morning, I sat in my car, phone in hand, debating whether to call my grandfather again. Maybe I'd misunderstood, but then I remembered my mother's laugh, that quiet certainty. So I called. He answered on the second ring. "Clara," he said, calm, almost amused. "Grandpa, they're planning something." "I know," he said simply, "and I've been preparing for it. Come to dinner on Thursday. Say nothing. Watch everything." "I can't just pretend." "You can," he interrupted gently. "Because what they don't know is that the game has already started." His calm frightened me more than their cruelty. Thanksgiving night, the house glowed with artificial warmth. My father greeted me like a politician before an election. My mother adjusted her diamond bracelet and smiled at her reflection. Headlights swept the driveway. My father straightened his tie. "Showtime," he whispered. But when the door opened, it wasn't just my grandfather. He arrived with Grace Hollander, his attorney, and David Ross, head of security. "Martin." "Linda," my grandfather said, polite but surgical. "I hope you don't mind company. I thought it was time for a more transparent conversation." My father's knuckles whitened around his glass. My mother's smile faltered, and I realized Grandpa hadn't come for dinner. He'd come for war. The dining room gleamed like a magazine spread, silver cutlery, crystal glasses, and a roasted turkey that smelled too perfect to be real. My mother had gone overboard, even placing name cards at each seat. Mine sat between hers and my grandfather's like a reminder that I was still trapped between two worlds. When Grandpa walked in, the room shifted. He didn't look fragile the way my parents described him. His posture was straight, his eyes sharp. Grace followed him with a calm confidence, her briefcase tucked neatly under her arm, while David, our security head, stood discreetly near the wall. "Father," my dad said warmly, almost too warmly, "we're honored you could join us." Grandpa smiled faintly. "It's Thanksgiving, Martin. I wouldn't miss it for the world." His voice carried weight like a judge about to deliver a verdict. Dinner began with polite conversation, the kind where everyone's waiting for someone else to slip. My father bragged about his recent business expansions. My mother laughed on cue, and I quietly counted the seconds until something cracked. Then, halfway through dessert, Grandpa set down his fork. "Before we continue," he said, "I'd like to take care of one last matter of family business." Grace opened her briefcase and handed him a small USB drive. My parents exchanged a glance. My father tried to keep his tone light. "Dad, can this wait until after dinner?" "I'm afraid not," he replied. "Clara." "Dear, would you help me with the laptop?" My stomach tightened. I plugged in the drive and clicked play. A familiar voice filled the room, my father's. "The medication switch will look natural. No one will suspect." The blood drained from my mother's face. Then her own voice followed. "After all these years, we'll finally get what we deserve." The room froze. The only sound was the faint hum of the laptop speakers. Grandpa's gaze never wavered. "So this is what I've built my legacy on, lies and poison." My father's mask cracked first. "You can't prove," Grace interrupted. "Actually, we can. That recording was obtained legally through company property. And we have more." My mother's hand shook as she reached for her wine glass, missing it completely. I sat perfectly still, every muscle locked, my breath trapped somewhere in my throat. Thanksgiving dinner was over. The performance had ended, and the truth had just taken its seat at the table. My father's face turned an impossible shade of red. For a moment, he looked like a man suffocating inside his own lies. Then, as if remembering the role he'd rehearsed all his life, he forced a smile. "Dad, this is ridiculous. You've been manipulated. Someone's setting us up." Grandpa didn't flinch. His calm was unnerving. "You're right," he said evenly. "Someone is setting you up yourself." Grace pressed another key on the laptop. A second video appeared on the screen. Grainy black and white, recorded from a camera in the hallway of our house. My father's voice echoed through the speakers again, but this time there was no denying what we saw. He was holding my grandfather's medication bottle, carefully replacing the pills inside. My mother stood nearby, watching. She whispered on the video, "It has to look natural. He's old. No one will question it." My father's hand slammed against the table. "You had cameras installed in my house." Grandpa's tone was almost pitying. "No, Martin. You did. Security cameras you never bothered to disable after I funded your renovations." The silence that followed was thick and airless. My mother covered her mouth, eyes wide, her lipstick smudged across her fingers. Grace closed the laptop gently. "Mr. and Mrs. Morgan," she said, her voice precise. "We've already sent the footage and recordings to the council and to law enforcement. You should expect contact soon." My father stood up, his chair scraping violently against the floor. "You can't do this to me. I built this company with you." Grandpa's reply was almost a whisper. "No, son. You built a shadow of it on greed and fear. And tonight that shadow dies." He turned his gaze to me. I couldn't speak. My throat burned with something between shame and relief. My mother finally found her voice trembling. "Harold, please, for Clara's sake." He cut her off softly. "For Clara's sake, this ends now." David, the security chief, stepped forward. My father looked at him like he might fight, but then something in him broke. He sat back down, his hands trembling. Grandpa rose slowly, resting one hand on my shoulder. "I didn't come here to punish," he said. "I came to protect what little of this family still deserves saving." And just like that, I knew he wasn't talking about them. He was talking about me. The room fell silent after my grandfather's words. The candles flickered as if the house itself was holding its breath. My father's face had gone rigid. For the first time, I saw fear instead of control. My mother's mascara streaked down her cheeks. She reached for my hand. "Clara, please. Tell him we're still a family." I pulled away. "Are we? Families don't plan murders." Grandpa nodded toward Grace, who waited by the door. "The police are ready," he said. "But I'll let you decide." The weight of it crushed me. My parents, broken, desperate, stared back. Part of me wanted vengeance. but another part wanted something quiet or justice. I asked, "If we don't call tonight, will they stop?" "Perhaps," he said. "But guilt doesn't rest. It'll destroy them either way." I looked at my parents. "You wanted his empire," I said softly. "Now you can have his consequences." Then I nodded. "Call them." Sirens rose in the distance. My father sat motionless, my mother crying softly, realizing too late that love can't be built from ambition. When the police arrived, there was no shouting, just the slow collapse of everything I'd once believed unshakable. As they led my parents away, my grandfather said quietly, "You did what I couldn't." "I didn't want to." "I know," he replied. "That's why it was right." And for the first time I believed him. Weeks passed. The estate grew quiet again. Reporters came and went. The scandal burned out like old paper. I stayed with my grandfather. The mornings were heavy, the silence too clean. Yet he moved through it with calm, his cane tapping softly like a heartbeat that refused to stop. One afternoon I found him in his study sunlight, cutting through dust. He didn't look triumphant, just tired. "Do you regret it?" I asked. "Regret requires surprise," he said. "But I didn't expect you to stand where you did." "I didn't do it for revenge," I said. "I know," he said. "That's why I can trust you." He handed me a folder, legal papers, deeds, a title, the Morgan Integrity Foundation. "I thought this was yours." "It is," he said. "But I won't be here forever. This family needs someone who values truth over legacy." Then, after a pause, "That night was a test, Clara. I knew long before you called. I needed proof not of their guilt, but of your courage. You used me," I whispered. "No," he said softly. "I trusted you to show me there's still something worth saving." The silence that followed felt lighter, almost clean. That night I walked past the empty dining room where it all had ended. The table was bare, the candles gone, but I could still hear the echoes. Justice, I realized, doesn't always roar. Sometimes it breathes quiet, steady enough to let you live again. And in that quiet I was finally free. Winter settled over Riverside, wrapping the Morgan estate in a hush that felt almost holy. I stood on the terrace with a cup of coffee in my hands, watching the first light break over the frost-covered garden. The house that had once echoed with deceit now sounded different, quiet, alive, breathing again. My parents' trial ended without drama. They accepted a plea deal and disappeared into separate lives defined by distance and regret. I didn't visit them, and they didn't ask me to. Some silences are healthier left untouched. My grandfather retired officially the following month, naming me the executive director of the Morgan Integrity Foundation. The title looked strange beside my name, but it felt right. Every signature, every decision carried a small reminder of the night that changed everything. I didn't inherit his fortune. I inherited his standard, his belief that truth is the only wealth that survives ruin. Sometimes I still hear echoes of my father's voice in my head, the way he said, "You'll understand one day." Maybe I do now. Power built on fear always collapses because fear doesn't last. Truth does. On my grandfather's last morning before moving to his summer home, he placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't mistake forgiveness for weakness. You can let go of what they did without forgetting who you are." I think about that often. The legacy of the Morgans isn't marble walls or family portraits. It's the choice between what's easy and what's right, and the cost that choice demands. As I walk through the house now, the faint sound of my heels echoing on the tile, I no longer feel small. I feel steady. I feel seen. I glance once more at the portrait above the fireplace. 3 generations of Morgans painted long before any of this began, and whisper more to myself than to them. I didn't destroy this family. I rebuilt what was left, and for the first time the silence that answers feels like peace.